Brothers Sinatra podcast, the only podcast featuring two swinging brothers talking about movies. I'm Jack Sinatra.
And I'm Tyler Sinatra.
And we're the Brothers Sinatra.
One day we're going to do it in
Well,
unison.
you know, it's a matter of physics, you know. You can't quite, we got to figure out exactly the syllable kind of when you're going to be at. And, you know, your equipment might not be the same from one day to another. Case in point, your mic is hanging like this right now, and before it was kind of down here where mine's at.
That's true. I changed my setup a little bit because, you know, in the Brothers Command Center, I was feeling a little cramped in the other corner I was in, and this is just a better space for me.
Yeah. You know, Uncle Enzo's been thinking that you're just skirting by all your chores here at home. You're spending a lot of time at that apartment in Chicago, and he's wondering, hey, where's that turtle wax that I told Tyler to get? And I have to end up getting the turtle wax for Uncle Enzo.
I'm in back. When I come back, I'll have the turtle wax when I come back. I'm not gonna be back for a while, Jackie. I'm at this apartment.
See, that's the problem. Is you never come back, and when you do come back, you try to get around all the Ring cameras so Uncle Enzo doesn't see you coming. Okay, you gotta be straight up with Uncle Enzo. You gotta come.
I'm never
straight up. And you gotta bring him what's on the list.
Jackie.
Okay.
I always come at him sideways, Jackie. That's the best way to come at Uncle Enzo. Straight sideways, because if you come at him straight, Jackie, he's gonna hit you straight. If you come at him sideways, it sort of glances off. That's my experience.
This is pitiful. 1,000 people freezing their butts off waiting to worship a rat. What a hype. Groundhog Day used to mean something in this town. They used to pull the hog out and they used to eat it. You hypocrites, all of you. You got a problem with what I'm saying, Tyler?
Not at all, Jackie. You know, I've lived long enough to understand what it takes to have a real Groundhog's Day. And I think Bill Murray was right on the money with that.
Absolutely, because today we're talking about Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Now, before we get into it, Tyler, people, if you want to listen, we're all over the place now, okay?
Oh, we're everywhere.
I used to say that we're exclusive on Spotify. That's not even true anymore, okay?
Not true.
We're on the Apple Podcasts. We're on the Amazon Music stuff. Okay?
You better check it out on Amazon.
And if you're not sure where to find us, well, just go to veryentertaining.biz and it'll have a bunch of buttons that'll kind of guide you. You know, you can just kind of click, 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 and you'll get there. Okay? It's not that hard.
Yeah, people ask us, why .biz? Why not .com? It's because we're a real business, and real businesses have .biz.
How would they know that we're a business unless we use the .biz?
How would they know that we're a very entertaining business if we didn't say we were very entertaining.biz?
Whenever I go to a website, I'm like, what is this? A commissary? Some kind of a communion? No, this is supposed to be a business, and that's why we got the .biz, okay?
Biz, folks.
Now, we also have Instagram, we got Facebook, we got TikTok, we got YouTube, so just, you know,
all
join us on all of those
medias.
Platforms. Go ahead and follow the show, all right? Subscribe, do all of that stuff.
We're thinking about upscroll, we're thinking about it.
Leave a little comment. If you love it, comment. If you hate it, comment, okay? We like the tit for tat.
You comment about how much you hate me, because those are my favorite comments.
Yeah, people really didn't like your Chalamet takes. You got like maybe one person that was on your side, but the other people were like, oh, what is he saying about our precious
I don't
Timothy?
need the general public on my side about the Chalamet thing, Jackie. I think I need at least one YouTuber to make a review where he does exactly what I described. And, oh, would you look at that? There are a few of them already. Anyway.
Well, we got some upcoming shows, Tyler, where people can meet you face-to-face and tell you how much they hate your Chalamet takes. So we got Saturday, 2-7 at the Roxy Lockport, Tyler, from 7 to 10.
Come in, tell me how much you hate my takes.
You got to tell them how much you hate the takes, but you got to buy a ticket, okay? You got to buy a ticket to that one.
Then the next week, if you want to tell me that, you got to buy a ticket.
So after that, the next weekend, that's Valentine's weekend, Tyler. And first on Friday, now this is before Valentine's Day, 2/13, we got a Valentine's dinner at Colvin House in Chicago. That's from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. You can come for dinner and pay a boatload, or you can just come and listen to the show for like $15 or something. But you got to buy a ticket, okay?
Got to buy a ticket.
And then
if
finally,
you want to tell me how much you hate my takes, you got to buy a ticket.
For those two, you got to buy a ticket. If you really do not want to buy tickets to anything, you can see us in Yorkville on the actual day, on Valentine's Day, but you got to get a reservation, okay? You see, you got to get all of these prerequisites to come and see us and tell us how much you hate Tyler's takes.
If you want to come and tell me how much you hate my takes, you need a reservation.
You're going to need a reservation. Then you can tell Tyler, I hate your takes. And, you can kind of have, we have, typically 3 sets with little set breaks, and you can just go and, give them an earful after the singing is done.
There's multiple opportunities. Some people are courageous enough to come up to us while we're singing. Normally, I can't answer you when I'm singing.
Yeah,
but I'll get to
typically not, but sometimes, during the songs, we do just kind of, locate people in the audience that we can kind of go back and forth with and, just comment on their appearance or whatever they're doing at any given time. Our shows...
Especially their appearance, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the most, it's the clearest thing that we can use, to do that sort of a stage banter. It's a big part of our act, if I'm frank about it. And we like to be frank.
Wait, I want to be frank.
Here.
Jackie,
No,
I wanted to be frank.
I'm going to be frank.
No, wait, no, I wanted to be frank.
Well, I guess both of us can at least be Phil, because we got a host of Phils. We're talking about Groundhog Day, and this is a brand new type of show for us, Tyler, because the last couple of weeks we've been looking at new films that came out this year.
That's true.
In 2026. And we called that Sinatra Streams. Well, this one is more of a Sinatra classic, okay? This is a classic film. It's not something that I can just go out there and what's new and hot and fresh. No, this is old and even hotter and way more fresher than you've ever heard of, because this is something.
It's one of those.
It's been around the block, but it's still an old
slow
standby.
cookers. It's been cooking for so long that it's still hot.
Yeah, it's like in one of those crock pots, just sitting on low, just absorbing all the spices and the juices.
Those flavors. Okay? Oh, yeah.
And they're all just still mixing around. And it's pretty much one of those almost timeless films. I'd say 90% timeless, Tyler. And a big reason why.
It's funny that you say timeless, Jackie.
Oh, well. You know where we're going with this, because
we're
going to be reliving this thing over and over and over again. And as you watch the movie over and over and over again, you pick up different things. It's a classic for a reason, Tyler. So let's get into it. The movie's Groundhog Day, directed by Harold Ramis, written by Ramis and Danny Rubin, who was the original screenwriter. And it's starring Bill Murray and Andy McDowell. So those are the main people. And I would say that this is definitely, for me, in my top 3 Bill Murray films, and certainly the number one thing when I think of Andy McDowell personally. So this is one of those top-line films, okay?
It's a top Murray feature, folks. If you're in for the Caddyshacks, you're definitely going to be in for the Groundhog Days.
Yeah, it's
if you're in for a Stripes... You're definitely going to be in for a Groundhog's Day.
Absolutely. And, this is kind of in that post-'80s sequence where he had, Ghostbusters, he had Caddyshack, he had Stripes, all of those kind of ba-bang, ba-bang, ba-bang. He was coming off of SNL hot.
Ghostbusters 2.
But then it was like, hey, what is he going to be, kind of in his latest stage career? He was, getting into, middle-aged Bill Murray. This was not that long. This was, I think, about 10 years or less than 10 years before Lost in Translation. So it was a very kind of transitional time. And it was like, is Bill Murray going to, continue this momentum? And I think he did. Andy McDowell. Of
course, Jackie.
A lot of people know Andy McDowell today as the mother of Margaret Qualley. So she has kind of taken this reverse nepotism thing recently. But for a very, small period of time, she was one of the most bankable, romantic comedy type actresses out there. She was also in Sex, Lies, and Videotape. So she's got a few hits out there, but all kind of disappeared from the public consciousness for a good while. Then I'm just going to name some other kind of featured actors. Some of these you could consider cameos. Some of them are just, they're around. Chris Elliott.
It's hard to say anything as a cameo in this because you're replaying the same day over and over again, so the same characters are there constantly. It's hard to call anything a cameo.
Yeah, it's like an ensemble. you know. But there
Yeah,
is
an
one
ensemble.
thing that I would say is a cameo, but it's a retrospective cameo just because of how this particular actor's career.
I was gonna say the
When?
same thing, Jack. It's funny that we'll get to it, but yeah, I have one of those too. I wonder if it's the same guy.
So quick hits here. We got Chris Elliott as Larry the cameraman. We got Stephen Tobolowsky as Ned Ryerson. We got Brian Doyle Murray, who just pops up in just about every Bill Murray thing as Buster. He's one of the main kind of Groundhog official guys. Now, this name, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly at all, but you got the character is Nancy Taylor, and the actress's name is Rita Garati, something like that. That's what it would be if she was Italian, at least. You got Angela
Garati.
Patton.
That's how I'd say it. Yeah.
Yeah, as Mrs. Lancaster, Angela Patton. And then you got an old comedian, Rick Ducommun, as Gus, one of the drunk guys, and then the other drunk guy is Rick Overton. Robin Duke is Doris, the waitress, who, you know, plays a part in a couple of different scenes. You got Ken Hudson Campbell as the guy who he always runs into right when he walks out of his B&B room every single day. He calls him Pork Chop at one point.
You're going to see the Groundhog?
Yeah, exactly.
And
then you got a bona fide Italian here from Chicago, Tyler, David Pasquesi. And he pops up in a bunch of different stuff. He's still, you know, very active. You know, if you just look at his filmography, he pops up all over. He's one of those faces where you see him and it's like, oh, I've seen that guy in something, and you probably have.
It's that guy from that thing that I saw that time.
Then you got the radio hosts. I don't recognize either of these guys, but Richard Hensel and Rob Riley. For a while, I thought it was Brian Doyle Murray that was one of the guys on that radio broadcast. You know, it kind of sounds like it could have been, but it wasn't. And then finally, you got someone who I've never heard of, Hynden Walsh, as one of the newly married couple. And then this is, I think, where the cameo is. Michael Shannon in probably, it's got to be like his first film role. Another Chicago-based actor.
It's not the one that I picked,
Oh, it's not.
Jackie. That's not the one that I picked at all.
Well, then you probably picked Harold Ramis himself.
No.
No?
No.
Which one is yours?
Willie Garson. Willie Garson. He was Mozzie in White Collar, but he also was Stanford Blatch in all of the Sex and the City stuff. So he was like TV actor, sure, but he was the assistant at the beginning of the film when you're like still in the studio for the weather, and he goes up to Bill Murray and he's talking to him.
So he's like
the guy who points.
Guy.
He's the producer that points out Rita to him for the first time.
Yeah. Okay.
And you don't even see his face until he's talking away from the camera, and then he turns, and I'm like, oh, it's him. I recognized him partially by his voice, but then you see his face, and it's him for sure, Jackie.
I don't know him at all, and he didn't make the short list on Wikipedia, so that is a deep, deep find there.
It's a deep cut.
I would say that the
him.
Harold Ramis one is definitely a cameo as well, because he's literally just in one scene as a neurologist.
He walks in, and he's 30 seconds of screen time, maybe?
Yeah.
Less.
So, a nice little ensemble. I think it's wild that Michael Shannon is in this, just like his career and the types of roles that he had after. I think he was also in Pleasantville, if I'm not mistaken. So he had these kind of, boyish charm type characters, but now he's, he progressed very quickly into the General Zod's. He just played Garfield, President Garfield on Death by Lightning, that Netflix show that just came out. So anyway, stacked cast.
He's been doing some theater too. I think he was in Chicago. I think last year.
I think
he was at Steppenwolf.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a Steppenwolf. Old standby. And he is. Just. I hear about people seeing him kind of out and about in Chicago. They just go into a bar and see Michael
I've seen him. I've absolutely seen him in a bar before.
Okay.
You don't go up to him. You just notice that it is Michael Shannon, and you say, "Wow."
Oh, I wouldn't know how to approach that guy.
I mean, you don't.
He looks like he's gonna sock you.
They're people just like you and me. There's no reason to approach him and be like, "I feel like I know you," because I've seen you on the No, that's crazy to do.
I feel like I don't know him
You've never
because
met him
he's such a
before.
chameleon. He's always, and you never know. He's
You
like,
never know.
He's the kind of actor where in every role he's in, you know he's going to snap at some point. He's just always kind of on the edge, you know, in his, you know, late
I keep
stage
getting these
type
shorts
stuff.
of Michael Shannon in a mob movie that I don't even know what the title is, and he's just so badass the whole time. I'm like, people are treating him bad, and he's like, just you wait. He has those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way he's like,
He was also in Boardwalk Empire as like a psychotic Fed. So that was the first time that I was really conscious of Michael Shannon as kind of the villain. So funny to see him here in
that
kind of an
might be
innocuous
it because
part.
is Al Capone, and I've never seen Boardwalk Empire. Then
Al
that
Capone.
must be it because
Stephen Graham plays Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire, who did the Adolescence show. You know, that was his whole thing, and he's a British actor, so it's kind of funny that he's
that
playing
must be
a
what I've been
Chicago
seeing
gangster.
that must be what I've been seeing in those shorts. Then I didn't know what I haven't. I just keep seeing it, and I'm like, oh, I'll have to look up what this is.
Speaking
you
of
already
Chicago,
looked it up for me.
Groundhog Day was filmed mostly in the Chicago area, so it's kind of funny. It's, you know, in Pennsylvania, set in Pennsylvania the entire time. But aside from, you know, those just cursory shots of Pittsburgh, you're pretty much in northern Illinois the whole time. There was, I think, the restaurant that they're at is in Chicago proper. It's an old German restaurant that may not be there anymore. But then, you know, 95% of it was shot in Woodstock, Illinois, which we'll talk about. And if you go to Woodstock,
Town Square,
yeah, it's basically, you know, you'll just be right in the middle of the film if you go into the town square in Woodstock, Illinois. So how do you stream this? The platform that it's on right now is Philo, which, to be honest with you, I already did a 30-day trial to watch something that I don't remember. But basically, I went out and I just bit the bullet. I purchased this for like $8 because I know I'm going to watch it again. It's a really good film.
And you don't let your brother share your password? You don't let your brother just
I don't
share
believe
it?
in password sharing, Tyler. You know, all these hurting businesses out there, they need your money for their digital properties. Just like I'm never going to share any of my NFTs with you. You know, those are my NFTs. I
don't want any part of your NFTs, Jackie.
I think you're going to
We're
want
going to
some
be
of my
releasing
NFTs.
some. We're going to be releasing some. The Brother Sinatra.
Don't
NFTs
let the cat out of
pretty
the
soon,
bag.
folks.
NFTs people think they went away. No,
They're still hot.
They're coming
No,
back. They're coming
still hot.
hotter than ever. Okay.
You know what?
Want
If
those?
you thought they were a bad investment
The
before,
thing is,
you
Tyler,
were wrong.
they're non-fungible, and that's why you got to pay a
that's what
premium.
makes 'em-
Because when they're fungible, they're no good. But these ones, not fungible at all.
Not fungible, and we're going to trade them on the blockchain, Jackie. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
It's secure.
It's going to be
secure.
blockchain. We're going to have cloud native, SaaS oriented. It's all going to be there, Tyler.
It's going to be all packaged in there for you, folks. And, well, you don't want to hear about it now.
No.
We're going to get to it later.
Absolutely not. So Groundhog Day was released at a time where there was no cloud infrastructure. We're talking about 1993, Tyler. So most likely filmed in the previous
VHS
year of
tapes.
1992.
If you were going to distribute it to the general public, that's a VHS tape, Jackie.
The internet existed in a certain sense, but it was mostly just like researchers sending, you know, little text articles back and forth, and, you know, probably some low-level, you know, maybe you could send a picture and it would take like 5 hours to download. Remember back in the day when you were on
from
the
the
internet?
top down.
Yeah, and you couldn't
would
use
be
your
like,
phone when you were
yeah.
using it. This
No.
film has almost no
the phone
concept
thing.
of computers at all that I can recall.
No.
There's not a whole lot
Not
of
one.
that. It might as well be
No
an
cell
80s
phones.
movie. We were talking
Could
about
be.
this beforehand, and you were
I thought
certain
I
that
was
it was
certain.
an 80s movie.
I Mandela affected myself. I thought it came out in 1987. I was sure. I would have bet on Mama's Gravy, Jackie, that it was 1987.
That's serious.
But boy, I would have lost all the gravy, Jackie.
So let's talk about the ratings. The Rotten Tomatoes on this is 94% critic score, 88% audience score, which I think is kind of insane. I think the audience
Sorta
score
low.
ought to be a little bit higher than the critic score
Yeah.
on this, because I would have expected some critics to be maybe a little more nitpicky on some of the elements. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
get to, everything.
The time travel looping thing, there are some things it's hard to navigate.
Yeah.
And you could nitpick about it, but why would the public care more than a critic?
I think it's also a movie that's grown in stature over time, so I wouldn't be surprised if initially, Rotten Tomatoes didn't exist back then, but if you were to do a Rotten Tomatoes back when it came out, I bet you it was more in the neighborhood of the low 80s maybe. But over time, I think it is a movie that with multiple watches, you can get a little deeper on it. You can watch it as just a very basic kind of romantic comedy, goofy Bill Murray film, or you can get really deep with it and philosophical and all of that. So I think that's one of the reasons why it stood the test of time. And also, it's just barely over 90 minutes, so it's something that you can sit down and just kind of fly through, and it's a good time to watch, even if you're not thinking too deeply about it.
Oh, it's true, folks. In fact, I watched it twice in preparation for this podcast, once regular speed, once on 1.5. Wouldn't suggest it. Movies should be watched at the speed that they were recorded in. But no, it's fun either way. It's fun multiple times. You notice a lot of different things. Definitely worth a rewatch.
So this uses the time loop. This is probably the movie that brought the time loop type structure into just, the modern mindset, the zeitgeist of, when we have different TV shows nowadays, different films. If you go and you look at a list of all of these pieces of media that use the time loop type of narrative, there are so many more that happen after Groundhog Day. It definitely wasn't the first one, but it was the one that kind of made it catch fire kind of across the spectrum. And so you see it, there's various TV shows that, an episode is a time loop episode. Like there's a Doctor Who episode. There was an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode that used the time loop. In movies, we'll get to, I kind of have a top three that I want to point out.
I would like to add another thing on top of the time loop. The way that this is filmed, in that he is, by the end, omniscient for all intents and purposes. That idea, or reliving the same thing, also I think drove sci-fi generally into comedy, like the idea of using like multiverses or different, like WandaVision has a multiverse thing. All of those, you can trace those back to the idea of putting sci-fi into lighter genres, which Groundhog Day really kind of did. It brought it to the forefront and was, we can put a high-level concept, science fiction concept, into something that's funny and digestible.
Whereas before, if you look at the stuff that came out before Groundhog Day that had the time loop, it was much more kind of hard sci-fi. The first one that I saw, I think, was like a French film in the 1960s. I believe it was called Je t'aime, Je t'aime. Not looking at my notes. And then there was also a Japanese novel that used this structure that's been adapted several times. And then what was interesting is around 1990, there was like a TV film that was an adaptation off of a book that appeared to be the first United States media to use a time loop. I don't recall the name of it, but that was also around the time that Rubin was writing, but apparently he wasn't influenced by that at all. We'll get to more of that, but basically he was more influenced by Anne Rice vampire stuff with regards to, how we kind of got
immortality and how you would deal with. I read a very similar thing to you, Jackie.
So did you come up with a top 3 time loop movie, TV, video game? If you just had just 3 to shout out there.
I'm reading your notes a little bit too, but I have similar ones, but some of them aren't necessarily time loop. They are sort of a twist on the time loop where you can change things by going into the past, but it's your life is the loop. There's this movie called About Time that came out in 2013. It is about a young man who finds out he can travel back in time and then live up to the point, But if he changes something, then everything changes. So he finds out that when he has a child, that if he goes back in time before the child was conceived, the child is different later because the conception is different. You've changed something. He also finds out that his father can travel through time, and it's passed down through the men in the family. And there's a very beautiful moment where he's traveling, he keeps going back, and he finds out he can't change certain things because if you change them, it changes things you care about later on. And he realizes that this is the last time that he's going to be able to talk to his father because his father's passed away, but he has a memory that he keeps going back to. It's so beautiful. It's a wonderful film, a little bit different than this. Turns the idea on its head a little bit. I don't want to mention your video game. I have an alternate video game, The Outer Wilds.
Okay.
Beautiful little space game. You're in a loop. You only have a certain amount of time to play. It's a puzzle game. It's essentially the universe that you're in is collapsing and you need to find something. I don't want to spoil it. It's a very good game. Beautiful. Hard to get through if you don't really read through spoilers. You really have to pay attention. It's not for somebody who just wants to sit and go on rails. You have to pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Can't be watching something else. One that's a direct. I love horror movies, Jackie. Happy Death Day.
Yeah, that's one that I saw as I was looking
2017. It's, I don't want to say it's a direct rip, but conceptually it is.
Yeah.
Wakes up every morning.
And it
it's
seems
a birthday.
like the
Gotta
number
figure
of
out who the
these have
murderer is.
accelerated in the last 10 years. Like, if you look at a list, there's so many of these that have come out more lately. And I don't know what that says, if it's like a lot of the, the superhero stuff coming into more of the public.
I think it's that, Jackie. I think it's that and like the Rick and Morty adult cartoon sort of like sci-fi stuff that is more in the forefront right now.
So the ones that I have,
the Rick and Morty effect is real.
Yeah. So I've got Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. So that's a game, year 2000.
Absolutely. Couldn't take it from you, Jackie.
It's
Couldn't
hard
take that one from you.
It's hard to even believe that it was, the year 2000. To me, it feels like it's even older, to be honest with you, because I just associate it as coming kind of on the heels of Ocarina of Time. And to be honest with you, I spent a lot more time with Ocarina of Time. But Majora's Mask, it has that, you're kind of reliving that same day. And as I recall, there was some sort of an apocalyptic element to it.
Jackie, it's Skull Kid has Majora's Mask on, and he's been corrupted, and then the moon is gonna come and crash.
Yeah, it's like that Lars von Trier film with Kirsten Dunst, Melancholia.
Yeah, Melancholia, Jackie.
That's probably where he got it from.
But they didn't have the Gorons come and then hold the moon.
I mean,
back.
if they had the Gorons, there wouldn't
that.
have been as much conflict in that film. It
wouldn't have been any conflict, Jackie.
I also have on here the movie Palm Springs with Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti. So that's one that, especially, I think it was a pandemic film, so it came out in 2020. So this is something that just reminds me of that time period. On Hulu, they're kind of stuck at a wedding reception and they keep on reliving the same night over and over again. You see a lot of memes about it, especially where he's dancing and he knows exactly kind of how to navigate the dance floor because he, has been there before. And then I have Two Distant Strangers, which is a short film. One of the producers of that is one of my favorite podcasters, Van Lathan. And it's basically, it won an Oscar, and it is about basically a conflict between a black man and a cop. And, he keeps reliving this interaction with the cop kind of over and over again. So, it's commentary on the fact that this happens over and over again in society, etc. And that's something that you can watch on Netflix right now. So Two Distant Strangers, Palm Springs you can still watch on Hulu and probably Disney Plus. And Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, I mean, you can probably emulate that at this point.
Okay, Jackie, you do not. Oh, we do not. You can't emulate it. No, you have to buy it in its original. You go to a retro gaming store that has resale games. Okay, go get an N64, and go get a Majora's Mask. If I had known, I would have my cartridge here right now, and I'd show it to you. That's how you should play it. Sorry.
Did N64 even have RCA video plugs? Well, because once you get to a certain set of consoles, the TV doesn't even have... You can't even get it on the screen anymore.
They make an adapter for it, Jackie. I have it.
I bet you do.
It's okay. You can plug it in. They have an HDMI adapter for the N64.
You always hide your adapters.
You can get one.
All right. Well, we've kind of been zigging and zagging, but we're finally at the spoiler alert, Tyler. Spoilers for Groundhog Day. Okay?
Can't believe it.
If you haven't seen Groundhog Day, which came out in 1993, just get out of here. It's
or
spoilers.
If you mean 1987.
Yeah, 1987. You could probably make up a conceivable year between 1985 and 94, and people would think that that's possible,
Pretty accurate. They'd be like, yeah, that's right.
You could say that Scrooged came after Groundhog's Day, and people would say, that sounds about right. Wrong.
That sounds right.
It was like 5 years before. Who knew?
Yeah.
All right, spoilers. Let's get into the Sinatra Summaries. We join Phil Connors, a curmudgeonly Pittsburgh weatherman, on his 4th annual trip to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania for Groundhog Day, joined by bright-eyed new producer Rita and almost funny cameraman Larry. After a fairly standard Groundhog prognostication by Phil's namesake, the crew's return trip is postponed by an unexpected blizzard, much to the chagrin of our intrepid weatherman. Forced to stay another night in Punxsutawney, things get strange when Phil realizes he has awoken to the same Sonny and Cher song, radio broadcast, and general interactions as the day before. This begins a cycle of innumerable repeated Groundhog Days, with Phil covering the full range of the stages of grief and using his seeming immortality to various ends, starting with the more hedonistic and self-centered, rounding off into a spurt of depression and multiple suicides before finally using his extraordinary circumstances for self-actualization and altruism. Along this personal journey, Phil attempts to court Rita, who he comes to desire above all the Punxsutawney talent. At first, he uses his endless number of shots to learn her full biography and scam commonalities, which she ultimately finds creepy and inauthentic. But after multiple years of working on himself and mastering a wide variety of skills, Rita is ineffably drawn to Phil, and after securing him at a bachelor auction for a few $100s, they spend the night together, fully clothed, and wake up on February 3rd. Because it's a romantic comedy, see?
Wow, that took forever.
That was way shorter than my one on the rip.
I know. All of your explanations take so long, Jackie. They take so long. How about this one? The worst man you've ever met in your entire life,
Larry,
needs the full weight of immortality and the terror of omniscience via a time loop to realize he's the problem. But yeah, it could have been Larry. It could have easily have been Larry.
We'll get to that. So let's go right into nothing but the best. All the best parts. I'm just going to hit these and we'll, just try to pop them off here. So we start in the TV studio. Anything to say about that, Tyler? We're in the studio. We're in Pittsburgh.
I told you that was my cameo.
Your cameo guy.
The Willie Garson.
Yep.
Rest in peace, Willie. Wonderful actor. Loved that part. I like being introduced to the characters too. You find out pretty quickly that Bill Murray is a jerk and that Rita is going to be a bubbly, nice personality.
Well, one of the first things that Bill Murray says in that scene, and he's like, what does he say? He's like, "Can it, hairdo?" He's talking to the female anchor. So yeah, he comes off as very bristly, and his technique. I did appreciate his weatherman technique. You don't see a lot of weathermen blowing the cold front in. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to doing the job, he was a fine weatherman, but I felt like,
It's fine, but he was also very incorrect on the actual, weather. That was a big part of how he got in trouble in the beginning.
Yeah.
So you have that TV studio. This is his 4th Groundhog Day that they're going to. He's like, this is my 4th one in a row. He hates it. He wants to go on to better things. He says that a bigger network is looking at him. Where do you think the network that he's, what is a bigger market than Pittsburgh that he's going to? Are we talking Chicago, or are we talking like
No, it was
Coastal,
the Food Network.
New York, LA?
What did they say? What did he
So the Home Shopping Network.
The Home Shopping Network?
That was our introduction to Larry. It was like, again, Larry almost being funny. It's like, I don't know.
But to be fair, Larry, what's the actor's name?
Chris Elliott
is a funny man. He is a funny man. He's done a lot of
I do wonder if you put
since.
someone else in this exact role saying the exact things, maybe someone that's not as, I guess we can get more into it later, but basically every time he talks, it's like he's trying to say a joke or a jab or a barb, and then his character takes a really kind of pathetic turn at the end of the film. We'll talk more about that as we go, but there were a lot of issues with Larry. Okay, so after the TV studio, driving into Punxsutawney, I really like, especially just since, I've been to Woodstock. I've actually gone to the Groundhog Day Festival, so it's cool when they're driving in and you're just in early 90s Woodstock. That's a cool, just lay of the land as they're going into the square. Day 1, you got starting the B&B. You meet Ned for the first time. They go to Gobbler's Knob. And then, it kind of ends with the highway blizzard. So, anything to say there?
I think the first day is just setting everything up. I think it's a very good opening. It shows you who all the characters are. I think the car scene where they're driving up, the shot of them from the front where the Bill Murray and Andy McDowell are in the front seat, and then Chris is in the back, and they're all having like that short little conversation is just a perfect little setup for their whole dynamic as a group.
Yeah.
Especially
are you talking about when they're going there
later.
For the first time, or when they're trying to
leave? Right, for the first time. No, when they're going for and when they're leaving too. They do a very similar
there's a similar
specifically
thing.
When they're going.
I think that what you're talking about is when he's talking about blood sausage and,
the blood sausage when they're going. Yeah, they're talking. Yeah.
Some people like blood sausage. Some people are morons.
Honestly, it kind of shows you that Bill Murray and Chris are like negative, and McDowell's a very
she's kind of like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Good force.
It seems like she's just kind of happy to be there overall. So you got day 1. That's kind of setting the foundation for all of the scenes that are coming to kind of bounce off of, because obviously, we start getting into the repetition. So day 2, he wakes up. He kind of realizes quickly that, didn't this happen yesterday? Why are they replaying the radio broadcast? Immediately he walks out, and the guy in the hallway says the same thing. He's like, didn't we do this yesterday? So day 2, he's just kind of like in this weird kind of paranoia. He's deeply feeling the deja vu, and everything is just kind of strange on that second day. You also obviously, each of these days, you have a different Ned interaction. So, one thing that I'm sure we'll talk about in another category, but, you could pick a bunch of the different Ned interactions as some of the best stuff in the movie, some of the most iconic. It's probably the 100%. Scene that most people remember, just... Yeah. Even the first interaction, the needle-nosed Ned,
at first
Ned the
step's
head,
a doozy.
He had the whistling belly button trick in high school. He dated his sister. There's like so much information in that first one. And then one of my favorite bits is he calls himself Ned the Bull in the first one. Yeah. Because he always charges in. And so there's some great Stephen Tobolowsky stuff that I'll talk about later.
Needle-nosed Ned.
Yeah, exactly. So day 3 is when he kind of breaks bad. So he kind of realizes, wait a minute, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. I can kind of do anything I want. So it kind of starts out, in a certain place, but then by the end, they're at the bowling alley. He's talking with the two drunk guys, and they end up, going on the police chase and driving on the train tracks and all that kind of stuff.
Love that scene, Jackie. That's definitely on my best of scenes. Yeah. The car chaos with our friends. What is it? Gus and Ralph, I think, are the names of the characters.
Yeah. I never remember. I just call them the drunk guys. And
drunk guys, yeah, but they're funny too. But that also, I think, the conversation they have in the bowling alley, they ask the question that I think is sort of the foundation of the movie. It's like, what would if I didn't have tomorrow, or I knew that tomorrow I was going to wake up and it was going to be today, what would you do? And they said, I would do anything. And then he's like,
but he's also, what would you do if you woke up and just lived the same day over and over again? And he's like, well, that just about says it for me.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good line. Yeah, just really good lines. Yeah.
And it's like, most guys see this glass and they say it's half full.
It's half empty.
And other guys say it's half empty. You seem like a half empty guy, Phil. So there's a lot of, fun stuff in there. He also talks about, his beach sex. Why couldn't you have that day over?
Why couldn't it be on that day?
Yeah. So after that, he wakes up, obviously not in jail, day 4. He starts having fun and getting weird. It's also when he's got like a spring in his step. I think that's the first day that he avoids stepping in that puddle after his net interaction. And he just starts kind of playing around. And then that's also when he's eating all the food on day 4. Just like guzzling coffee right out of carafe. Doesn't care.
You're not worrying about your heart?
Yeah.
Smoking at the table. That's another thing.
That was nostalgic.
Oh my gosh.
It just brought me back. When you went into a diner like that in the 90s, that was just part of it. You just
it hit
the
you.
Cigarette smell, even like going into a Baker's Square back in the day.
Jackie, I was gonna say Baker's Square. Remember your parents, our parents, asking us, "You want to go to Baker's Square?" And we say, "Oh yeah, I want that French silk cake or pie, the French silk pie. Remember the chocolate one?"
Of
course.
Then
we go in and they'd say, "Do you want to sit in the smoking or the non-smoking section, Jackie?"
Like it even matters. Like you can't smell the smoke.
No, and Mama would always take us to the non-smoking section. Enzo would smoke anyway.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't really tie Enzo down. He would just pretend that he didn't speak English whenever they told him to put it out. He's an Italian man. What are you going to do?
Worked every time, Jackie. They never made him put it out.
They did.
At worst, they made him finish it there.
They brought
really
the manager
quick.
over, and by the end of the manager coming over, he would have a cigarette in his hand too. Enzo is very persuasive, and he's all about just having a good time.
He's a good man, Enzo. Good to have him in the family.
So after day 4, we got day 5, where he's basically pursuing Nancy. So at the end of day 4, he's like, hey, what's your name? Where did you go to high school? So he's gathering this information.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes into the logical place, because any man that was in this situation would likely get to this point. I'm surprised it took Phil until, day 4 or 5. I feel like, especially just how you're introduced to him, I think he probably could have gotten to this place even earlier. But he starts just doing research to try to get laid, at that
Pretty
point.
quickly. Pretty gross.
So, day
actually.
5, he pursues Nancy. He ends up basically getting all the way there on that day. And that's kind of the first time that Phil openly has any type of, clue that he's into Rita, because when he's with Nancy, he says Rita's name. And that's kind of the first time where it's even a thing. In the beginning, it's like he's like treating her like she's really annoying, So I thought that was kind of strange that, that occurred in that way. But he's clearly into Rita. And, He keeps saying her name while he's with Nancy. And he also tells Nancy that he wants to marry her. And apparently Nancy is super into that.
That was like a very crazy notion to me. Like, oh, you said the wrong name a few times while we're being intimate.
Yeah.
And the way
and then once corrected, he goes right back.
But the way to continue is to say that I want to get married to you, the woman who I just said the wrong name to a few times. The best part was at the very, very end of the scene when they're like, he does the Rita thing one more time, and then she says Nancy, and he's like, whatever, and then they just keep kissing.
Oh, she clearly, didn't think too hard about it. I think she and most of the female characters that are in this film were clearly written by men, which they were. But Nancy in particular was just like supposed to have nothing between the ears. That was kind of the idea there.
All the women were written by men, Jackie. You don't say.
Yeah.
You don't say.
And so after day 5, you kind of lose track of the days because immediately, it starts jumping. I think the next jump after the clear day 5 is when he knows when the gust of wind is coming. He knows how many steps he has to take to steal the money bag out of the armored car. So at this point, we could be months down the line. We could be years down the line. You don't really know at this point how much time has passed.
Oh, I'm very opinionated about when the moment we don't know how much time has passed starts. And I think that's when, and this is one of my best scenes too, when they first start repeating without going back to the clock. And it's when he starts getting the drink with her with the sweet vermouth with a twist. Sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. They're ordering drinks at the bar. He first says Jim Beam, ice, water. And then she says, and then immediately it goes back to the beginning of that sequence, and then he orders another drink. First of all, filmmaking-wise, really good way to show that we're just skipping the whole clock sequence and we're just going to go straight to jumping through time. But right then, that is the moment when I think no viewer can know how long it's taken between that time and the other, because he could have taken his shot with the first time they got drinks, right, and lived 100 years and then been like, okay, we're going to try this date again. I know it could be just the next day, but there's no way to know if he just went after it again the next day. He could have done it. This is like one of those things where it's like we could just say, yeah, it is the first day, and people can argue, whatever. But realistically, the way this film, it's infinite. You have no idea how long it's been since that time and that time.
For me, I counted 5 distinct sequential days, and then after that, I lost it. And I think even before he's courting Rita and even before that hotel bar, I think he's got the thing with Nancy, but then after Nancy, in between, before he goes for Rita, he goes to the movie theater with the French maid girl who, luckily is an adult. And so there was a lot in between there where you have no idea at this point. It could be, again, months, it could be years. And there's a lot of conflicting, Ramis himself had multiple answers to how long it was. It's one of the things that there's never going to be a distinct answer, but it can be anywhere between like 10 years to 10,000 years, basically, as far as how long he's been in here.
I like to think of it as, I think it could be way more than 10,000. Well,
that's the Buddhist answer, because that's how long they say it takes to perfect the soul.
Yeah.
So, if you view, it depends on the lens that you're viewing it through, or if you're taking what Ramis said at face value, the multiple times that he said stuff.
Yeah, I just think that it'd be so, whatever. Conceptually, it would be so much more interesting for him to have lived much longer. That's me. But it's also, it could have been 2 weeks,
Yeah, I mean, what you would have to do is go through with a fine-tooth comb, look at all of his skill sets, the ice sculptures, the piano, the various
See how long
nice
it would take to
deeds
get good.
Yeah, like apply the 10,000 hours across all of that. Maybe account for some downtime where he was, not just constantly working on different skills, etc.
But didn't he also say he spent 6 weeks, 4 hours a day throwing cards?
Yeah, so that's part of it. But you don't know when that started. You don't know how much time there was where he was just doing nothing. Like, how long was he just kind of in that hedonistic phase of just trying to, like, see if he could get with every girl in town and that sort of thing. So,
or every boy. You don't know.
They don't go there, but he does, out one of the servers
He does
later.
out one server.
A cool thing to do in 1993. Just go ahead.
You could just do that. Go
take
to
him
any
out of the
diner.
closet. That's fine.
Point at a waiter at a diner and say, "You're gay."
To be fair, everybody
do
forgets the next day, so it's just no consequences. So after he courts Rita the first time, you have the failures and the slapping montage, and basically after that you get depressed Phil, where he's down in the dumps, and then he literally has all the suicide attempts after his Groundhog heist, essentially. Then after all of that, you've got what I have written as Wise God Phil, where he's just, all-knowing. That's exactly what we were just talking about, where he's going to the different people in the diner and he's saying...
He's pointing out...
this person...
He knows all about him.
She was born in Ireland and, came here. She wants nothing more than to retire in Paris. And then that's where you see Michael Shannon for the first time as the newly married couple, but she's having second thoughts, and he's like, "What?
What? What? No."
So after that scene, Rita spends the night again. So this is like his second kind of crack at Rita, where the first time he was trying to trick her, essentially. This time he's being like completely upfront and telling her honestly, this is what's going on. After that, he wakes up and he's still in the cycle. He kind of goes into this altruistic Phil mode where he's just trying to help people out a bunch. And that kind of goes simultaneously with what I call virtuoso Phil. So this is when he's just learning all these different skills, becoming very good at different things. Also, in that virtuoso Phil phase, one of the funny things that happens is they have a Ned interaction where he goes... and he just hugs him and won't let him go.
He's like, "Oh, I missed you so much."
And the way that Ned runs away from that is one of my funniest Ned moments.
Well, Ned Naruto runs away from
That's
him.
Exactly what I... Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
If he wasn't holding a briefcase in his hand, he would have had both of his hands directly
he is
out
truly
behind him.
45-degree angle, running away as fast as he can. It's definitely not an underrated performance, but it is an iconic performance.
I'm surprised he didn't yell, "Wait, Sasuke," before he just ran off,
I'll understand that someday. So
Probably not.
He creeps out Ned. He tries to save that old man over and over again. He just can't.
That was really sad.
I know.
But also
that was one of the first
times
I was surprised because I've seen this movie over and over again, and that was, probably the first time in the film where I started to get a little misty.
Yeah, I was when he talks to the nurse, he goes to the bed, and then it immediately goes to the next day where he's feeding the soup, and then they're in the alley at the end. I'm like, oh, oof.
Yeah, the nurse is sometimes people just die. Tough.
And he says, "Not today."
Yeah,
not today.
Yep.
But that's also where the thing is, it's an interesting way that you phrased it here. You said Phil, or what is it? What did you call him? God Phil, or Phil God, or whatever it was.
Wise
God Phil. This is where I think that's the moment where he realizes that he's actually not a god. I think there is a point in the film where Phil's character believes that he may be some sort of deity or something, and I think it's at this point where he's like, "Oh, I can't prevent anything from happening. I don't have power over what's going on right now. I am merely experiencing this over and over again.
It's almost
it's
like
outside of
at a
my
certain
control.
point, he's trying to like 100% the level. He's trying to
absolutely.
just literally do the perfect run for this day. And when you count up all the things that are happening, I mean, by the end of this, when he's saving the kid from the tree, he's doing the Heimlich on Buster, he's fixing, it's kind of funny because he's literally saving people's lives, but then he spends X amount of time just changing a tire for those old ladies. It's like they would have been fine, realistically. Like, nothing bad would have happened.
Yeah, but he fixes all the town's problems in one day.
Yeah, he just goes around, and you'd have to imagine that he made some kind of a list of priorities at some point, where he's like, well, these are the most, pressing issues.
Yeah.
But,
I think it's funny that, like, the saving the kid thing, I think it's funny that he kept saving him even though he's like, you've never thanked me once.
One thing he could have done is done like a 51st date style, video or some sort of instructions. So he could have employed other people to help him. Maybe he couldn't be everywhere at once. I think that was, maybe a missed opportunity.
But the problem is, Jackie, he couldn't save them over the days or whatever because, like, remember he cracks the pencil and then he puts it next to him.
That's true. He wouldn't have been able to. He would have had to. Part of his routine would have had to have been recording that video every morning.
Recording it every day. Yeah.
So that is a flaw in my plan for sure.
But hey, 51st States, that's another, I mean, it turns the concept on its head, but I think you could call it a spiritual successor. It's using the human mind instead of actually time looping, but it's, she's reliving the same day every day. It's
so after he's on this streak of just trying to save all these people, we get to kind of the final push of the film. This is the actual last day where there's the party at the hotel. I have written here, Larry crashes out at the hotel bar. He's trying to get with Nancy, and she wants nothing to do with him, and he just cannot, he just doesn't catch on at all. And then Larry's character takes a bizarre turn. I think previous to this moment, this last day, he's kind of innocuous. He's kind of, that guy who doesn't really know how to be funny but keeps trying over and over again. But at this point, the thing that really turned me on him is he pretends to tip. There's not a lot of
Jackie.
people of color in this film, Tyler, but there's this black bartender, and he's earlier in the movie when they're doing the sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist, the world peace thing, and he kind of rolls his eyes. He knows exactly what he's doing. He does the same thing with Chris Elliott as Larry here on Nancy. He's like, okay, this guy is just trying to get with this girl. Larry goes to tip this man, and then as he walks away, after Nancy's attention is diverted, he removes the tip, puts it back in his pocket.
Oh yeah, Jackie. Terrible.
And I'll
hated it.
I'll get to that in a second. A little more about that, but after this we get Piano God Phil. So a lot of blues licks for Piano God Phil, but a lot of the rhythmic stuff he was doing was very impressive.
Yeah,
I'll get to more about that, but basically he's clearly
nimble fingers, Jackie.
Nimble fingers. He is leading the band with aplomb, and then you got the bachelor auction, which goes a certain way for Phil and then a certain way for Larry, and then you got
the way it should have gone, probably.
Probably. And then we finally wake up the next day. For some reason, they're playing the same song, but it's a different part of it, so it's kind of a little fake out. But then they're together. She's in the bed with Phil, Rita, I mean, and then, they walk out, and it's a new day. It's February 3rd officially. So we kind of walk through everything at a high level. What would you say is the best scene?
So I have a couple contenders for best scene. I really like the Wise God. You called it the Wise God Phil or Wise Phil God. I called it the Diner God scene, where he's trying to prove to her for the first time that, yeah, this is what's happening to me. I have all of these things, and she starts to believe him. The sequence after that where they start talking for real, great scene. I already said this, but the old man, when he discovers that this man's gonna die and he can't stop it, I think that is also a really good turning point, but a great scene for Bill Murray. The scene in the hospital followed up with the diner to the alley. Wonderful. I have a shout out. It's not technically a scene, but I think it is one of the best shots in the film. When the big clock tumble. The clock tumbles a couple of different times, but there's one where the camera is at the base right corner and it's looking up and it falls in slow motion and it giant thud. Yeah. I think
it's just a really brilliant shot. It's
like I don't even know how to explain it to you in my head. It just
the sound design on it is amazing as well.
Is incredible. The fact that both of the flaps fall at different, like it's the real clock, it's releasing them and they're falling at different rates, and it's so good. And it's also the way I don't know how they picked this clock or if they intended to do this, but the fact that it's like flipping and it's not a dial. I don't know, like the flip of the clock is so much more definitive as like this is starting over, rather than having like the minute hand click in or the second hand click in and have the minute hand join. Having it fall and have the numbers be there is just such a big statement. I don't know. It sort of reminds me of like a scoreboard. Like the old the same Wrigley Field scoreboard, but the same one they've had. It's like, it's so definitive. You put that physical thing in there, and it's like, sorry, you're stuck. This is where we are. And I think it makes it seem so big the way it's framed, and it's scary. You think the time is going to crush you. It's just such a beautiful shot, and it's only on screen for like 5 seconds. And it's so good. Anyway, those are mine. Those are my favorites.
I think for me, I would just I would do the obvious choice, which is the Ned stuff.
The Ned stuff.
If I had to pick one, it would probably be the first one, just because it's got the most in it, and that first step is a doozy, and like just it's iconic. It's
his
brilliant.
Gesture is so.
I know It's just you cannot imagine anybody else doing that role. No. And I think there were a couple of other parts, a couple of other actors that you could interchange. I think you could have put someone else in the Andy McDowell role. I think you could have put someone else in the Chris Elliott role. I think a lot of the other actors are interchangeable, maybe for the better, maybe for just, getting the same result. But, Phil, Bill Murray, and Ned Ryerson, those are the two kind of iconic, set in stone. Those are kind of what makes the movie what it is for me. So I think a big
I 100% agree with you, Jackie. Yeah. It's fun. I don't mean to cut you off, but did you know that Chevy Chase and Tom Hanks and Michael Keaton were all considered for this role? I could imagine. Could you imagine, like...
I can imagine why.
Not Tom.
Not Tom Hanks.
I couldn't imagine
Hanks is the bottom of the three, because you can't imagine Tom Hanks being that cynical and negative. I feel like the most cynical and negative that I've seen him is You've Got Mail, where he's like the head of a big bookstore conglomerate. But even then, it's like...
The most cynical I've seen Tom Hanks is when he's playing Walt Disney and he has to put out his cigarette.
Oh, that's true.
That's the only time.
But
he's so disappointed he can't smoke on screen.
I mean, the Chevy Chase version of the film, I feel like he would be too unlikable, or it would be just too much like his
irredeemable
character.
No, I agree. It would be more like a Vacation, but I also think he would be irredeemable, Jackie. I don't think
it wouldn't be as funny
ever.
I don't think.
Yeah.
And then the Michael Keaton version, again, a little bit less funny. there is a Harold Ramis movie with Andy McDowell and Michael Keaton, because I think the way that I heard it was Michael Keaton passed on this one and regretted it later, so he tried to do it again. Like, he tried to kind of do a version of, you know, that film, and it just wasn't nearly as popular. And I do not remember the name of the film, Multiplicity or something like that. But it had, you know, a lot of the same crew, and it was just kind of swapping in Keaton, and, you know, forgettable. So I think we lucked out that it happened the way it did. Unfortunately, whether it was this film that put it over the top, or, you know, it was just a matter of time, and this film doesn't matter if it would have happened or not, this kind of led to the end of Bill Murray and Harold Ramis' relationship. And they basically didn't talk until Ramis, shortly before he died, which I can't believe was it was 2014. It's hard to believe that it's been that long.
Also hard to believe that they didn't talk for so long after they had such, like, careers together. They both worked so long, and
yeah,
very sad.
Obviously, Stripes, Ghostbusters, and then this is kind of the end of that era. And just the, you know, with the themes of the film and everything, and kind of, you know, really appreciating everything that life has to offer. It's just kind of ironic. Anyhow, let's get to the demerits. So I just got
demerits.
I got some quick demerits. Number one, the Weatherman song. Just a tough one. The Weatherman song, I don't know if you know this, but it was co-written by Harold Ramis.
Oh, Jackie.
And it's so on the nose. If you went, I don't know. Maybe it's not a demerit. Maybe every movie should do this and just create, you know, a song about, you know, the main character that's going to be in the movie. Like, if you have the People We Meet on Vacation version, it's just like, yeah, I'm your vacation man. Oh, yeah. Vacation man. And then if you got the
friends
riff,
and it's never gonna be any different. Or maybe not.
And then with the rip, it'd be like, I'm gonna jack that rip. Jack it on down. Just jack that rip.
Or at least act like I am so I can figure it out.
So, the Weatherman song, it's just...
No.
Of anything in the movie, and there's some hairstyles, there were a few articles of clothing that date this film, that is the one thing that dates this film above everything else. It's just got that weird kind of quasi-calypso vibe that is so late 80s, early 90s, and that, honestly, I don't think will ever come back. It's just the one thing that kind of lived in that 6 or so years and then immediately died, and we just are never going back there.
Don't say that, Jackie. That's what we said about low-rise jeans.
I'm always talking about low-rise jeans.
Yeah, and so are those Gen Z people.
My next demerit, Rita and Larry are poorly written. Sorry. Just for different reasons. They're shallow. Larry is just kind of reactive and semi-quippy. But I don't know if you notice this. Larry always says, like, one too many things. He could just kind of leave it at the first sentence and then, you know, just leave it there and let us kind of make the rest of the joke in our heads. For example, when Phil drives off the cliff with the groundhog, he's like, maybe he's all right. And then it explodes. That would be enough. But then he has to say, oh, maybe not. It's like, you didn't need the rest of that. And that's not Chris Elliott's fault.
No.
It's the writing. And
it's just,
So it's just a little like that for Larry. And then for Rita, I think she starts out as like, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, willing to, you know, she's down to just have any experience. She's kind of amazed by what's going on with the whole thing. But then as they kind of peel back the layers, they go into the different pieces. I've got a lot more on Rita that I'll share in a later category, but Rita and Larry are poorly written. And then 2 quick ones for me. Phil's multiple HR violations against Rita. Tough. Specifically, and there are a few others, but the one that really got me was he goes up to Rita, who he's been working with for a few hours. He's known her for barely any time, and he's like, could you help me with my pelvic tilt? That wouldn't fly.
Yeah. No, that's early 90s, just banter between two. That's normal.
He's also
that's
probably
normal.
At least 10 to 15 years her senior. So, just odd. And then, my last demerit, Gobbler's Knob. What are we doing here? With Gobbler's Knob? You're gonna call the main meeting place Gobbler's Knob?
Oh, yeah. I love that
And
name,
nobody
Jackie.
in the entire film says, well, why don't you gobble this knob? Or anything like that. And it's just sitting there.
Oh, Jackie.
So that's 4 demerits for me.
That's 4 demerits?
4 demerits.
Well, Jackie, demerit for me is I think it's unrealistic that Nancy, after he says Rita for the 4th time and then does whatever, there's no shot that she would kiss him again. That's a demerit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a
We
demerit.
need to do something about that.
Absolute demerit.
So this isn't about like movie writing. This is a personal demerit. This isn't me saying that it's not necessary for the movie. I know that the suicide sequence, Jackie.
The sewer sequence.
The sewer sequence. I understand why it's in there. I don't think we needed it. I don't think we needed him jumping
Did you know
off
that the
film.
original script was like a lot darker than the final film? So Danny Rubin's original script was much more akin to like, it had a lot of elements of like French film, and it was a little more serious.
I thought it was just out of place. If it were more dark the whole time, I think the sewer sequence works, but I think you're like jovial the whole time, and then all of a sudden you're like berated with him committing suicide multiple times, and I'm like, well, that sort of... I was laughing.
I think a couple of them were... I think you could have gotten away with maybe 1 or 2. I think like the toaster is a little extreme. I like
was much.
I like the jump, and I think it's important, I guess, to show that he's doing it over and over again. But
that's why I said it was like a personal thing. I'm like,
But he also,
much.
He says that he's been shot, stabbed, poisoned, like all this other stuff.
Yeah, you could. That's part of it. It's like you could have had him do it 1 or 2 times, and then name more and been like, oh well, okay, he's lived hundreds of deaths. We get it. But I just thought it was abrupt and sort of. No, it's very hard to give demerits to this film. I adore it. So
it is, yeah. Even the
those
stuff.
Two it's like it's sort of.
We're nitpicking here. It's not like stuff that is cloying at me and that bothers me. Even the Weatherman song, I'm sitting there, I'm kind of dancing a little bit to the Weatherman song. I'm preparing for this podcast, and I'm singing the Weatherman song over and over again. And I'm walking around
it's catchy.
to my wife, and I'm like, I'm your weatherman. So.
Pretty good, Jackie. I bet she likes that. What's the forecast for tonight?
It's going to be a little dry.
You don't have
tonight.
to answer that. You don't have to answer. Oh, God.
It's going to be dry and a little windy because of our Dyson fan.
Oh.
Let's get to some questions, Tyler. How about you? This is the How About You question section. So, let's go just one for one here. I'll do a question, you do a question. And let's talk about it for like a few seconds. When did Phil first desire Rita, and why? When I first caught on is when he was saying her name when he was with Nancy. But was it clear in the movie when he was actually into her? Was there any sign of it before then, do you think?
Well, so to me, I think the first, like, when she's pointed out to him in the production studio, I think the intention, because they do, like, a full frame of her and then a frame of the reaction of Bill Murray. I think the intention is that it's at that point where he's like, oh yeah, she's hot. But I don't think that desire, you mean like actually wants her, and I don't think that's when it is. I think you're right. I think it's when he is I think he realizes it probably at the same time, where he's in an intimate moment and he wishes it was with somebody else. And I think that is the time, the Nancy moment. But I think the movie wishes that it were earlier.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where you know that she is the female counterpart right away. You know as the audience, but I just didn't get a vibe from Phil, unless it's like that whole kind of playground situation where you tease the person that you like. But like that's not the vibe, because he was kind of acting the same way to the other woman, working the news desk at the beginning. So I just think that's interesting. I didn't get any kind of vibes that he was into her until he says her name with Nancy. What's your question?
All right, my question. If you were in this situation, would you stay? Or would you immediately try finding a way out? Like, would you take the time to stay and screw around, or would you immediately go towards, I have to find a way out of the loop?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the first day is a normal day. The second day, I mean, it'd be interesting how long it takes me. I would wonder how long it would take me to figure out that it's a new day, because my routine might not be the same on the second day. I might take a little longer to get out of the room, and so I don't know if that guy's going to be waiting outside the door. So assuming that I figure out kind of in the same time that he did on that second day, I feel like I would be probably more prone to the experimentation angle of... I couldn't help, I think, but stay in the town. And if I realized it was the same day... I feel like I would get to the point where I would start testing how far I could get outside. And that kind of actually leads into one of my other questions. What if he just got a snowmobile and drove out of town on the snowmobile as far as he could get? Would it still just pull him back? And actually, what's funny about that is I think in the original script there was more of that, where he tried to get out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. They do that, and they describe that in one of the movies we mentioned. That's like a successor to this one, and it's Palm Springs. Yeah. Andy Samberg's character says, he goes on a drug bender to keep himself awake, and then he flies all the way to another country. I don't remember where he says, and then he just says, "The moment I fell asleep, I was back here."
Yeah, and so that's probably a direct reaction to these kinds of questions about Groundhog Day, is, applying that to, that different setting. So, yeah.
I got a question, Jackie.
Sure.
Why does Phil keep kissing everybody on the lips?
So remind me, so is he...
every time,
So, Mrs. Lancaster, he does. Does he do it to the waitress, Doris?
Yeah, he just every woman that he kisses them on the lips.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, maybe he's secretly Italian. We're very affectionate people.
That's true. So, secretly Italian.
Although the name Connors, it would have to be on the mother's side. That's not really a standard Italian surname. But yeah, I mean, I think again it's because of the no consequences thing. I don't think he was doing that a lot before he knew that.
Could be.
But then it leads you to think, was he still doing that on the last day? How much stuff did he do on that last day that it's oh, well, now I got to live with that? Seemed like he was just kind of, acing everything by that time and, very nice and helping people out. But maybe he threw in a few kisses in there would get him canceled down the line.
Ooh, probably.
That's a good question, and I don't have this written down, but... would Phil Connors get canceled today?
Oh, yeah.
Would he have gotten canceled before this thing? Maybe that's why he ended up at this station in Pittsburgh. Maybe he got soft canceled from one of the bigger markets, and he, had to take a step down because it's not like he's in the, I would be surprised if he was in like the prime of his career. It seems like he's maybe, 10-ish years after his prime.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely been working for a while, Jackie.
Yeah. So maybe he did get soft canceled. What exactly happens at the stroke of 6? We've kind of talked about that, but they didn't explore that too much. They had like where they tried to stay up, but they never really take it to the moment of, they don't show him like zapping or disintegrating so it's just like a physics question of, what actually occurs.
See, my personal opinion on that is I would take the Palm Springs aspect of where he would get past 6 o'clock. It would be the next day, but the moment that his body like turns off or like isn't conscious anymore is the time where it like resets everything. Because it's just from his perspective, as far as anybody else knows, the day's gonna go on, right? And as far as we know, like, we don't know how else the world is, like, how the world is moving outside of this town and outside of this conception of Phil, right? So it's very interesting. This kind of thing can only be contained in a movie because it could never really happen. There could never be a single spot, a single person who would be going in a loop over and over again and not have everything else be going in a loop at the same time. Is the rest of the world looping? Or is it just, here? Is it just him? Or is he the one doing it?
That actually makes me think of something interesting. So, has there ever been a show or a movie that you're aware of where a time loop occurs, and in Groundhog Day, we're purely in Phil's perspective. We're kind of with him the whole time. But what if you did Groundhog Day, you made it a 6 to 8 episode Netflix series, and each episode was from, you had a Nancy episode, you had, a Rita,
like a day that it's in the perspective of every character.
It's like you do it in the perspective of every character, and Phil is just kind of, he exists in the background, and he is, quote unquote, he's still the time god guy. He's the only one.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Those perspectives.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. If no one's done that, you should do it. There's probably a reason why they haven't. It's probably, hard to wrap your mind around.
Ooh, well,
or have it be
we'll talk about
a coherent narrative.
It's funny. We've talked about it before, but I'm not going to divulge my own movie ideas to the public, Jackie. Let's not talk about real ones.
So here's another question. How would smartphones change this movie?
Oh,
the moment that I thought about this was actually at the very end when he makes the ice sculpture of her face. The first thing I thought is she would be taking her phone out and taking a picture of this. It's just funny that back in the day, you didn't have people just pulling out cameras all the time. It's like you had photographers that might, be taking pictures, but this was even before digital cameras, so you don't just got a million people out there, taking pictures of stuff. I just feel like that's something in a modern film, there'd be so many moments where the phone would come into play. So it'd be funny to go back through this movie and just, the moments where that would kind of change everything.
Edit in cell phone scenes.
I mean, the most obvious way to kind of curb the effect, I guess, would be the 5G tower goes down and they don't have any reception. And then, then a truck hits like the main internet carrier. You could have like these catastrophes that make it impossible for people to access certain things. But there has to still be that one guy with the satellite phone. There's just always a technology, I feel like, now that would add a wrinkle, whereas in this one, it's like he says at one point, all the long distance lines are down and they're like, they'll be back up tomorrow. And he's like, what if there is no tomorrow? It's just, it's hard to conceive of that type of thing happening.
Yeah. The more technology is, just in our society, the less mystery there is, and that is reflected in film as well. It's hard to hide things. Horror movies have gotten very complex because you have GPS trackers on your phones. How do you lose somebody if they have a phone with them all the time? You can't get lost in the woods, you'll have the last location on your phone. There's a lot of, yeah, we're in that place, but that's why this movie is perfect for its time, Jackie. It's perfect for its time.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, Jackie. I got one sort of goofy question. How many do you think of the townspeople did Phil try to get with? Do you think it was... if it were me, all of them.
I think legitimately... I think that he would have tried to get with every single one. Because he just had so much time on his hands.
Yeah. Okay. Aside from the children, everybody who can consent...
Yeah, you would hope. You would hope.
You'd hope.
I mean...
Well, it's...
Nobody wants to see a dark... No one wants to see that dark version of Groundhog Day.
No one wants to see that version.
No. I mean, that's just that's the easiest trap for I feel like any 16-year-old that would try to create some kind of a time loop narrative. It's just the easiest trap to fall into, where guys just end up doing the most disgusting stuff. We were talking about Pluribus a while back, and that's a big reason why they made the main character on Pluribus a woman, is because with that as well, when you got this, spoilers for Pluribus, you got this hive mind situation where basically you only have a few people on Earth with free will. It's when you have a guy and you have, the entire population of Earth that would do anything you wanted, obviously you can see the direction that could go. So, it's a lot easier when you have a woman protagonist. So that's actually another interesting thing. What if Groundhog Day was from the perspective of Rita, and Rita was the one that was living through the cycles?
She'd have 3 days and she'd be done. She's too good. She would have figured out the...
Or maybe she comes to realize that, she has to realize that nobody wants to hear her poetry or talk about poetry. And then once she finally stops trying to push that on people, that's when she breaks out of the cycle, when she just has normal conversations and when she has reasonable expectations about what her partner should be. Any other questions, Tyler?
No, I don't have any other questions, Jackie.
All right. That'll do it for me with the questions. Let's go to Send in the Clowns, the funniest part. What do you got?
Well, Jackie, the Ned scenes are, to me, the funniest bits.
We talked about it a little bit.
We talked about the first one. I like all of that. The first one is the best one. By far the funniest. The lines are hilarious. Needle-nosed Ned, the belly button whistling, all that funny.
The way he progresses is so subtle and genius. Even the second time he steps in the puddle, just the extra sauce he puts on the wow.
And then
so good.
Oh God, what is it? Am I right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, so good. Oh, so annoying. So funny.
Then, I forget about certain things. So this last time that I watched, the thing that stuck out to me and genuinely made me laugh was Ned the Bull. He's like,
oh yeah.
Now I'm Ned the Bull. I charge in, and then obviously his run away after the affectionate Phil. That was hilarious, and just how vibed out he is in that situation.
The second day, the dawn of the second day, when he goes down to Miss Langris, and he says,
Mrs. Lancaster?
Did I say Langris? Lancaster.
I said Langris. I don't know who Mrs. Langris is, Tyler.
Neither do I.
Who is this
Lancaster?
Langris?
Who is this Langris? No, it's Mrs. Lancaster. He's like, have you ever heard of Deja Vu? And she says, I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen.
Yeah, that's one of the best lines. That's just one of the
best lines in the whole.
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
I
literally I laughed out loud at that part, and I also laughed out loud when the groundhog is driving the truck in Bill Murray's lap, and he's like, "Check your mirrors, side your eye." And he's
he actually got bitten by that groundhog twice, and I think one of them was after that scene. He had to go to the hospital and get like a rabies shot and all that.
That's what you get for acting with a groundhog.
Yeah, and when I went to the Groundhog Festival, the locations manager for the film, his name is Bob Hudgens, was there, and he talked about, that and how they had to acquire the groundhog, and it was a very non-standard thing. Like, there was one person in the state of Illinois who could get them a groundhog, and like I think it was a big ordeal. Like, he had to get the groundhog after the request. Like, he didn't just have it; he had to like go get it. So it's the logistics of getting the groundhog. I wonder if you were going to do this today. It feels like a little loosey-goosey, and the fact that it bit like a very famous actor twice, it can't
CGI in that groundhog, Jackie. There's no shot they get in the live.
That's
groundhog.
A good point. Yeah, CGI groundhog. I think that's that's another great point. This film is so timeless because it doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, it's all
the
extras.
only
There's
effect that I was aware of is when they're driving on the blizzard highway. You kind of got an effect on the screen that makes it look like more snow is coming down, but it's not super
but that's
distracting.
Not. I wouldn't even consider that like an effect. That is a classic. That we've been doing that in films since they've been going with acetone to individual like frames of the film.
Yeah.
We've been doing stuff like that. That doesn't count. It's not CGI.
All right.
Yeah.
Another one that I have is...
sorry, Jack.
No, you're good. I was just going to say one of mine is the snowball fight. So you got the first snowball fight that kind of sets it up with the kids where they're doing the snowman. So this is in kind of his first courtship of Rita. And, they have a snowball fight and whatever. But I think the funniest bit of that is the second snowball fight when he's just trying to kind of go through the motions. And he's like, oh, I love kids. Why? Stop hitting me. Oh, I wish I could adopt all of you. And he's just like really kind of dialing it up on the kids. And
and then when he falls into the snowbank, instead of like falling like nonchalantly, he like jostles in closer to Rita, and he's like trying to move in for the kiss when it happened so naturally the first time. You're like, oh
yeah, it's just like
boy.
a little bit more. It's just a little bit more contrived the second time, and just the edge that he puts on it. It just is so funny. I remember seeing it back in the day, made me laugh. It was like literally like cannot stop laughing. And I'm so aware that scene is coming now, but it still does the trick on me. Like it's still one of my favorite parts. One of the funny lines is just when I think it's the first day, he goes and tries to take a shower after the blizzard, and he gets nothing but cold water. And he's out in the hallway, and Mrs. Lancaster's there, and he's like, yo, Mom, isn't there any hot water? Just the way he says it.
And then she's like, I always thought it was funny, too, that she said, on a day like today? Of course not. It's like,
what does that even mean?
What does that mean?
They didn't have hot water tanks in 1993. I just don't.
They definitely did.
Understand
I didn't get that either. But
it didn't strike me that it was necessarily a super ultra cold day, but just that there was a lot of precipitation.
Yeah, it's just a lot of snow.
He does.
Nobody
go
was
out.
like double.
When he goes
coated.
onto the highway and talks to the cop, he doesn't even have a jacket on, and like he's shivering, but it's like it's not like dying or anything.
Yeah, and most of the men are wearing like top coat and scarf, not parka. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then my last funniest part that I have is, he does those progressions of where he's doing the little news report at Gobbler's Knob, and the funniest one to me is where I think it's even the first day where he does his little, thing after his main report, and he's like, this is one of the times where TV truly fails to capture the excitement of a large squirrel predicting the weather.
Yeah.
But each of
was
those,
a really
I
good
mean,
line.
the second one where
Yeah.
he's like, well, it's Groundhog Day again. Just
Yeah.
his progression, and then obviously when he gets to the point where he's doing like the Chekhov said that the long winter was,
Yeah.
and everyone has like their microphones.
That has their own microphones up to it.
Everybody is trying to get his report. Yeah. So that is
so funny. Yeah.
that's my stuff for Send in the
That's
Clowns.
Send in the Clowns.
And if I had to pick one, it'd be the second snowball fight for me.
Mine's got to be the first Ned.
There you go. The way you look tonight. Who was the best looking? What was the best look? I've got
There's
a few different ones.
really
here.
there's only one answer for me, Jack.
Oh,
well,
boy.
there's two.
Well,
Okay.
Let me hear it.
Buster's suit. He had
I have that as well.
3-piece suit. He had the
I made it more generalized. I just said the Groundhog
Yeah.
officials. So there were a couple of them. Buster
Yeah,
is the main
there were a
guy.
couple of them.
But yeah, he's got
Buster
the top hat.
is the
He's got
name,
the nice
yeah.
suit. Looking good.
It's good.
Okay,
He's
what's
got the vest.
your second option?
Oh. Rita in that pink vest, Jackie. The pink striped vest. Hilarious. But it's a good look. For the time, boy.
This is one of mine as well. How I had it is Rita Kenny G vest. Because
Yeah, the Kenny G vest, Jackie.
Rita had some
it is
real
the
Kenny G
standout.
vibes at certain points in this film.
I'm surprised she didn't get up on the stage and play that saxophone.
See, that's why we need Rita in the driver's seat of the cycles so that she could have, had a soprano saxophone. And then it turns out she was Kenny G the whole time. That's actually the origin of Kenny G.
Turns out the Groundhog Day was the Kenny G's we met along the way.
Exactly. And then I've got actually two more. So I had both of those.
Go for it, Jackie.
So the other one I had was Nancy at Gobbler's Knob. She's got that, her cold outfit get up when he goes
Yeah.
on the fifth day. And he's like, Nancy Taylor? So her whole, she's got, she's got some furry stuff going on. She's got, I think, pink tights on. So she's got a whole get up. And then
My ex-girlfriend doesn't even remember me.
the other one that
That's a
I've
funny
got.
line, too.
It's like that was my fiance or whatever, and that was
Yeah,
actually
my ex-fiance.
That was in the movie theater scene, which is the other one that I have here. Him dressed up as Clint Eastwood, where he's got the poncho, he's got the cigarillo, and he demands that his maid partner calls him Bronco. He's like, I told you, call me Bronco.
I'd have done too, Jackie. Call me Bronco. Ooh, I like that. Call me that from now on.
So the top one that I've got, Bronco, I gotta go Rita and the Kenny G vest because that stood out to me as well.
Rita and the Kenny G vest is my number one too, Jackie. It's definitely the first on my list, and Buster's my second.
All right.
And technically, I do have Ned as like a honorable mention because he had a fine hat on with a wonderful feather. But aside from that, it was a lackluster outfit.
All right, let's go to casting crooners. So, who would you cast? Frank, Dean, you got, all these other various crooners. Who would you cast in Groundhog Day?
Jackie, I normally like taking the Rat Pack. It's easier for me. I think Dino would make a spectacular Phil.
Dino is Phil.
Dino is Phil. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it. You'd
Okay.
think, oh, Tyler's going to make Frank Phil. No. Frank's too good to be Phil.
I don't have Frank as Phil either.
Sammy Davis is going to play Larry, Jackie.
Sammy Davis is Larry.
Sammy Davis, I think, could give a quip, and he could be funny. He could say, oh, I think he'll be okay. Maybe not. And I think he could have delivered it, and it would have been perfect. That's the Sammy Davis for you. Rita, I think we have this in common, if I'm reading yours correctly, is I picked Rosemary Clooney for Rita. Frank is going to be Buster, Jackie. Frank's gotta be Buster.
Frank's
Frank's
Buster.
gotta be.
Well,
Frank's running the whole show, Jackie.
Okay.
Yeah, he's well dressed. He's running the whole show. He eats a fine steak a little too fast. That's Frankie for you, Jackie.
So I'm gonna go a little bit. Oh, you got more.
Well, I got one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Peter Lawford.
Lawford.
He's Ned.
You have Lawford as Ned.
Yeah.
See, I think Ned is
Lawford's a bum.
sneaky likable, which is why I wouldn't put Lawford there. If anything, Lawford would be the Groundhog. Okay.
Okay, I could see that.
See,
the Groundhog.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about this more, originally I had Sammy Davis as Buster. Now I'm thinking Sammy Davis as Ned. I could see Sammy Davis just being, that right energy for Ned, doing that kind of motor-mouth action. And, I think he could make a great Ned. So I'm going to have Sammy Davis as Ned. I'm going to have... Okay, so this is what I did with the kind of core 3 parts of the news team. So we have Phil, we have Larry, and we have Rita. I just kind of went in and took the main people out of White Christmas. So I've got Bing Crosby as Phil. I've got Danny Kaye as Larry, and then I've got Rosemary Clooney as Rita. And I think what that does is, just imagine that last scene where you got Phil, Piano God, and then it goes into the auction, and just imagine Danny Kaye up there, and nobody wants to bet, nobody wants to bid $1.50 on Danny Kaye.
Jackie, it makes sense to me, Jackie.
I think he would have been so much more likable.
I can see the vision.
The delivery would have been better. It would have made more sense with Danny Kaye. And then I got to put Frank and Dino in it. I'm going to have them as the drunk guys, and Dean is the drunker one. So Dean is probably the bigger guy. I think Frank is the flapjack gentleman. And, the flapjack gent. So Frank and Dean, they come in just for a good time, not a long time, but the core of what we're focusing on is the White Christmas crew. And then we got Sammy Davis coming in as Ned. We got Peter Lawford as the Groundhog, going off the cliff. Boom.
I like it, Jackie.
All right, let's move on to the best is yet to come. These are the sequel ideas. You got an idea for a sequel to Groundhog Day?
Yes, Jackie. I've got a great sequel for Groundhog Day. Now, imagine, okay, Phil and Rita, they've gotten together. They've already decided they live in Puxatawny, okay? They've said that. They said it at the end. Now, imagine, 10 years, 20 years down the line, they have a kid. He's going off to college, Jackie. He's going off to college. But he needs to learn a little bit about himself before he does. Where does he want to go to school? He's got to start putting in his applications. It's February, after all. It's Groundhog Day. He has to decide where he's going to go. And now he's in a loop. And he's going crazy. He's in high school. It's a coming-of-age tale about a young man trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life. But he has 2 parents who have been here before. And he can tell them, oh boy, I'm doing a Groundhog Day. And they'll understand what that means because it's after the original Groundhog Day. Now we all know that when we say I'm doing a Groundhog Day, it means I'm reliving the same day over and over again. So then his parents can help him. And then they ultimately figure out what he wants to do with his life. Maybe he has a love interest and they get together. And then they decide, let's not decide to go too crazy before we go to college. Or, something happens where they're like, oh, we'll wait for each other, or, oh, we're all both going to the same college. Congratulations, happily ever after. Coming-of-age tale of a young man Groundhog Daying.
So he's Groundhog Daying in college.
Yeah, well, no, he's going into college. He's
going
like in
college.
high school.
So he's like...
deciding.
So it's like Superbad.
It's a coming-of-age tale.
It's like
sort of, yeah, like a Superbad.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
it's like Groundhog Day,
Superbad,
but
Groundhog
super
Day.
bad.
Yeah, but I would prefer the characters to be likable.
All right, that's a whole other can of worms. We'll get to that on the Superbad.
No,
podcast.
it's true. It's like Jonah Hill's character, and it was like designed to be sort of like a jerk. Like it is, well, it's supposed to be Seth Rogen. Sorry, Seth, but he knows this just as well as everybody else does. Sony didn't let Jonah Hill's character hold the PlayStation controller on screen because they said he was too unlikable to be playing a Sony console. And if we were gonna fund the movie and make it and produce it, you can't have Jonah Hill's character playing the console. Funny stuff. But I like Superbad. It's just that he is unlikable. It's not my fault.
Save it for the Superbad podcast.
Okay.
So my sequel would have nothing to do with Superbad. If anything, it would be super good. I had a really boring answer where it would just be kind of the next day. So you'd have February 3rd. And I think you could approach this kind of like, 24, where you really take it kind of hour by hour. And like he's just really struggling dealing with new stuff because he's so used to everything happening, the same every day. So now he's got these new challenges. How is he going to deal with that? And then as we were just talking here, I thought of another idea for a sequel, President's Day, where he goes back in time and has to, meet with all of the presidents. And, maybe it's around the time of, like, the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. So you just have a lot of them in the same room. And then it's like you have Ben Franklin there, who a lot of people think was a president, but he's not, So you just get
a lot of president
bang for your buck. And maybe he's, like, living the drafting of the Declaration Day over and over again. I don't know. It's like a more historical Groundhog Day President's Day.
That would be fun. Yeah, like that's like 1776 X Groundhog Day. Yeah,
exactly. But it would be on President's Day. It's like we'd have to figure out the precise nature of that, and we'd maybe pick a different date. I don't know, but President's Day. And then I just wanted to mention here that there actually was a video game that was made, which I had no idea. This is a real game that came out in 2019 called Groundhog Day, Like Father, Like Son. So that exists.
Wait, really?
It exists, and it kind of sounds like it might be stepping on the toes of your sequel idea.
Wait, really?
Really.
That's not fair.
I did a very cursory search, and it looks like, it's not like a 3D game. It looks maybe just like a kind of click different screens, and I don't really know what you do at all. I read one Reddit article that said that there was this German guy. It was 2019, and there was one guy who said that he had a good time with it when he was just doing it for his German publication. So I don't know, but Groundhog Day, Like Father, Like Son. Never heard of it. Had no idea. All right, let's get to something stupid. So let's throw out just a couple of random facts. I'm just going to go through some quick hits here, and we don't need to talk too much about it. So we already talked that Danny Rubin, the main writer, was inspired by Anne Rice's The Vampire Lestat. So it was more about the immortality idea, but then it turned out that, practically when it got to like how do we create a script that can actually be shot into a film, it was easier to do it in a cyclical type of nature rather than linear, because his original concept was living through time and like seeing all these different time periods. That's a lot more expensive and more difficult, to get that going than what it ended up being. The original script started with Phil waking up. So that whole news sequence where they're at the studio was not in the original script. So that probably came in after Ramis got involved. In the original script, Phil tracked time by reading a page of a book a day. So there was a lot more of him actually tracking how long he's been going. And then he literally runs out of pages at some point in the original script. And then in the original script, Rita somehow gets stuck in a loop at the end. So that's kind of how it ends, is Rita is now the person that's stuck in a loop.
Probably because she made the mistake of being with Phil for the...
Could be.
Just gotta figure that one out.
This Groundhog Day was preserved by the Library of Congress in 2006. So,
2006, Jackie. Yep. Yeah.
It was the last movie in Ramis and Murray's partnership. They didn't speak until just before his death. We've talked about this in the past. There's this myth about they shot it in a particular order so that Murray would get more and more agitated, so they shot it reverse. That's not true.
Not true.
That's something that pops up all the time. It just always kind of comes up like it's this cool fact about the movie. It's a neat idea. I don't know where it came from, but literally I asked the locations guy because he was kind of leading a tour in Woodstock, and he said, that's absolutely not true. That would make no sense for how movies are shot. The practical thing to do is when you're doing all these repeated scenes, you're staying in that location and you're just shooting that shot. So it just would make literally no sense. They would have spent so much more money doing it that way. Anyway. Another thing, when I went to the Groundhog Day Festival, the actor, the Ned Ryerson actor, was actually there. So I got to hear firsthand from Stephen Tobolowsky a couple of stories. And one of them that he said is when Bill Murray came into Woodstock, the first thing he did was he went into, there were all these extras and different townspeople and people that were really inconvenienced, just people that lived in Woodstock that now they had to kind of give up their town for, however many weeks while they shot this film. And it was just, very inconvenient for everybody. So as kind of a peacekeeping measure, Bill Murray went to this local bakery in the square, bought out all the pastries, and just started throwing the pastries up and giving everybody. He's like, "Anybody want Danishes?" And just starts throwing them. So that's obviously paraphrase, but that was one of the stories that he told. In the square, you got all the businesses. 99% of the businesses that you see, the signs are just made for the film, so they're not really those businesses, but you can see Woodstock
the facades,
Jewelers.
Jackie, the facades.
So there is Woodstock Jewelers that you can still see, and that's the only one that kind of kept its original sign. We talked about Murray getting bit by the groundhog twice, and then the last two items. So Bill Murray, as Phil in the Bachelor auction, Rita pays $339.88. Adjusted for inflation, that is $769.67. So do you think that's
too many dollars?
You think it's too many?
Too many.
See, I think it's kind of funny that Buster shuts down the auction at that point, like nobody's going to bid higher. How is he so sure? Because some of those old women in there probably had a lot more money, and I could see them,
but Jackie,
at that point, he was kind of the top of the crop.
Small town, I don't think anybody's paying more than $100 for anybody, and if somebody puts that $339.88 down on the table, you say, whoa, count me out of that one. I got 2 bits on that next guy.
That's the last thing that I had is apparently 2 bits is 25 cents.
Yeah. Wait, you didn't know that?
Why would that be? Why
2 bits,
would
4 bits, 6 bits, $1, Jackie.
But
it's you don't.
That implies the existence of 1 bit. And you're telling me that 1 bit is 12.5 cents? That makes no sense.
That's not. All I know is that 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, $1. That's what I know, meaning that
so $1 is 8 bits.
Cents. $1 8 bits.
I'm just telling you, somewhere our wires got crossed as a society, and this whole bit system just doesn't make no sense to me. When I heard 2 bits, I was always thinking it was 2 coins that you're rubbing together. There's no 12.5 cent coin. So, to me,
Jackie,
somewhere we lost the way on this whole 2 bits thing.
That's a hot take, Jackie.
Oh,
that's a real hot take.
Well, if you do you have any other random facts for something stupid before we do
Absolutely
get to the
not,
hot
Jackie.
takes?
You covered all of the random facts that I had. I only
All right.
had the 2006 induction into the Library of Congress.
All right. So, what's your hottest take about Groundhog Day?
Hottest take is Larry is equally as bad as Phil and could have been in the Groundhog loop just as, like, he's just as bad. If we're supposed to think that Bill Murray's Phil is bad, oh, Larry is just as bad. And he doesn't tip. And he's like just as slimy with ladies. Didn't like that. This is Ned shouldn't be there. I guess this is a qualm with the film. Ned shouldn't be there every single time. Those Ned interactions shouldn't happen. Even though I love them, they shouldn't happen. Because after the first day, he arrives at that point at a different time of day. But Ned is still in the same spot. So Ned's scenes should basically be gone after the first one.
Maybe he's literally, that's like his corner that he patrols, and he's just looking for easy marks.
Sure.
And he just spots Phil every single time. You know, that's his strategy for selling his insurance.
Could be, Jackie. My final, and maybe my hottest take, is the small amount of good that did come from Phil being in the loop. Like him learning to play the piano. He didn't deserve any of that. He didn't deserve to be able to eat whatever food he wanted. He only deserved the bad things. He only deserved the terror of having to live for eternity. He only deserved that stuff. And the fact that he got the good stuff, gross.
Yeah.
If
you hear any kerfluffle in the background, that's just our dog, Mia Farrow. She's getting very antsy for dinner, okay? So
sometimes Mia begs for dinner.
Yeah, you know, she'll really give it to you. If 5 o'clock rolls around and dinner isn't there, she'll let you know what time it is, okay? So my hot take is that Rita is just not it, okay? There's something wrong about Rita. Now, here's my evidence. First, it starts with the blue screen, okay? She's playing around with the blue screen like it's the first time that she's ever seen this technology. Now, she's a producer for a pretty major, news company, and at this point in 1993, the news, I feel like, was a bigger deal. So, I don't know. The blue screen, that whole thing was just, there's something off there. She's so amazed by the Groundhog Day Festival, and she's like, wow, all these people just, they wait around and they have such a good time, and then when they get too cold, they go in and they just have more fun. And it's like, have you ever been to any kind of a party or festival before? It's like, it shouldn't be that amazing.
That's exactly, it's how it goes every time. Normally people have fun, and then when they get too cold, they go back in and get warm.
Yeah, it's just like she's a little bit too amazed by, just the festival and the fact that people are enjoying it. And, she obviously has a very apparent Southern accent. That's an Andy McDowell thing. She is Southern, but it's just, it appears like she's a Southern person that has gone north of the Mason-Dixon line for the very first time and is just amazed that people like wear coats and, like to do stuff. This was crazy. So Phil says this thing at one point that's like, what if the world just exploded, or what if the world ended? And he's like, what would you do? And she said that she just wants to know where to point the camera.
Sociopath,
nuts.
Jackie.
Nuts.
Insane.
What else is nuts is her description of her perfect guy. She just continues to list things. She's like, he's strong and handsome and sensitive and sweet and good looking, and she just keeps on naming stuff. And I mean, the best part of that scene is just Phil's responses. He's like, me, and then she gets to the point about sensitive, not afraid to cry in front of her, and he's like, are we talking about a man here? And then
change a poopy diaper.
The sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. Have you ever had this drink, Tyler? Have you ever had just sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist?
I gotta tell you, Jackie, it's back in vogue. Speaking from personal experience, I've had this. I'm. It is popular now again, and sweet vermouth.
Again?
I've never. Again, yeah. It is a drink. It is the thing that people use. Sweet vermouth on the rocks is a thing. Sweet vermouth is a fortified wine. People enjoy it. People drink shots of it.
I know what sweet vermouth is. I'm just saying, how can you go in with a straight face and say that is your favorite drink?
I don't know how it could be a favorite drink.
The benefit of having sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist when you got
I gotta tell you,
other
Jackie,
mixed drinks and you got, normal wine? What is the
sweet vermouth
advantage?
on the rocks with a twist is the thing that I think somebody who wants to impress a bartender would order. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm saying it's my favorite drink because it's actually my favorite drink. No. It's not actually your favorite drink. You're saying it. Give me a shot of Fernet, Mr. Bartender. Give me an Underberg. That you're trying to impress like the person, because normal people don't really order it. And it's like, if you're drinking sweet vermouth with a twist, you are very particular. You're not just like, more people like bourbon, more people like vodka, more people like tequila. So it does make you seem special, but it's not. It's just like drinking any other spirit on the rocks to me.
I've had it, and I just don't get it. I think that it is just another piece of evidence against Rita. And then the last thing, but not least, is the 19th century French poetry thing. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, we hear her say poetry from Sir Walter Scott, not French, okay? Do we ever hear her say any French poetry?
No.
Phil does it, and that's another just funny part where all of a sudden he breaks out into this French poetry, on his second time around or whatever.
You speak French?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, oui.
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 So, she's got this 19th century French poetry. She also, like, all the stuff he learns about her, it's like she wants everybody to live in the mountains. And it's just, as he was collecting all this data on the stuff that she thinks is perfect, I just think it's very odd, peculiar. I don't understand why he was so drawn to her. I mean, I guess she's the person in that town, in his little circle, that had the most depth. So, like, being there for that amount of time, she had the most layers to peel back, maybe. Whereas, your Nancys and whatnot were a little bit more easy to understand on the first go-around. But I think that once he breaks that cycle, like, do you really think that they stay together 1 year, even a month after? Like, I think that now that the entire world is open to him, I feel like, he's going.
The other thing is he's a super genius now. However long, he's just lived.
He can go touring with his piano chops. Like, he can go and do these ice sculptures, and wherever he wants. He's like a professional in these multiple different facets. He's a doctor without a degree. Like, he fixed that guy's back,
Yeah, everything when it comes into like coming out of a loop, it's like, well, what do you do now? Everything, because you're a genius and you can do anything you want. It's like the end of, like, remember when we were talking about Tron Ares? It's like when he's, if you had, the computer had access to everything, and it's a super genius. It's now you become a real person. What do you do now? Oh, anything you want, because you have all of the planet's knowledge of. Yeah, he's a superhero. He might as well just be a billionaire now.
Yeah, he's probably not doing the weather anymore. No,
why would he?
Didn't seem like he was that passionate about it at the end of the day. All right. So let's go to Strangers in the Night, the best cameo or feature. We've kind of gone over these, so let's just bang through it. I had Michael Shannon. I had Brian Doyle Murray. And probably my favorite just bit part actor was Mrs. Lancaster, who,
she was really good.
What was the actress's name? Something Patton. Angela Patton. So she was, just her reactions and just her level of sincerity as he was being very rude, asking for an espresso, talking about the deja vu. She was, she took part in probably the funniest line with the deja vu.
Commenting on whether she could spell cappuccino or espresso.
I think that was funny. That just shows you how far the coffee culture has come in the U.S. since then, where espresso cappuccino was like an off-the-wall crazy thing for him to talk about at that point. So
and now it's like commonplace. If you're going to a hotel and they don't have an espresso machine that like produces you a latte that, like with a button.
Yeah.
Boy. I already said this, but Willie Garson, from Sex and the City, white collar fame.
Yeah.
Brian Doyle Murray. I just want to, for the kids at home, if you don't know who Brian Doyle Murray is, you do know. You actually do. He's the voice of the Flying Dutchman on SpongeBob.
Yep, that's probably for our generation. That is the most iconic Brian Doyle Murray, the voice of the Flying Dutchman. But he just shows up in just about every Bill Murray. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's in Caddyshack, but he's also in JFK, and he's got an enormous career. He's got a lot of voice acting under his belt, too. So
let me ask you right now, Tyler, would you take Brian Doyle Murray or Ron Howard's brother, who I think is Clint Howard? Ron Howard's brother that shows up, all over the place. Yeah. Which one would you take, Brian Doyle Murray or Clint Howard?
I take Brian Doyle Murray for the voice. His voice is iconic to me. That gravel.
It's funny because he's more of the voice, and then Howard's brother is more the face. You see his face, and he's just like that guy. It's like you just like see, oh, it's that guy that
that guy.
In all those other films.
But Brian Doyle Murray, you're like, oh my gosh, that voice.
Yeah.
Like Don LaFontaine, rest in peace.
Me and My Shadow Award for the best brothers. Okay, the best brothers in the film, and this one, There's
only two contenders for me, Jackie.
Well, I've got three. I've got two written down, but I actually thought of a third one that's a little more meta, I suppose. So go ahead.
Originally, first watch through the film, I thought the radio DJs, good two brothers. They reminded me of Jack and Tyler Sinatra, back and forth. They say, talking about what's coming out of your lips, and then one of them's like chapped lips, and it's like chapped lips. That just reminded me very much of
they're riffing off of each other a little
bit.
They're
riffing. Yeah. They're doing what we do. They're doing what brothers do. So they're contenders for real brothers. But then Ralph and Gus, the bowling drunk buddies, I think they are enormous contenders.
I have
for the
them down as well.
Of the film.
The drunk brothers. The other two that I've got Phil and Phil, the Groundhog and the Man. So they're just, they're name brothers, namesakes.
Name brothers. And
they're driving together at the one point. I think they develop, a little bit of a relationship. But then one that I thought of after I made these notes was you've obviously got Bill Murray and Brian Doyle Murray, actual brothers. So from more of a meta standpoint, they could be their best brothers as well.
Jackie, that's too meta for me. I don't like that.
So what would you go with for the award? The Drunk Brothers?
Drunk Brothers, Jackie. The Drunk Brothers are the best.
I'll go with you too. Let's go with the Drunk Brothers because, they got some nice moments. The iconic
funny lines,
car chase, the flapjacks, the glass half full, half empty.
They set up the idea of him going a little kooky with the chaos.
They're also at the diner, and he's like, hey, your name's Phil, like the Groundhog.
Yeah, like the Groundhog. That was funny.
All right. Here's the big moment. Who was your chairman of the board? Who won the film?
Jackie, there's only one. He carried the whole film on his back, and his name is William Murray, Jackie.
I thought you were going to say Scooter, which was the name of the Groundhog. No, it was
Scooter.
I think the obvious answer is Bill Murray. If I can take this beyond a person, I think the biggest winner of this film is Woodstock, Illinois, because it has provided them with a culture It's like the thing for Woodstock. You go into Woodstock and it's like the Groundhog Day town. They have a mural and they've got some other stuff. Now, did you know that the Pennsylvania Hotel, not the place where he stayed at the B&B, but the spot where Rita stays, that's actually the Woodstock Opera House. It also happens to be where he jumps off of that tower. That's the tower on the Opera House there.
Oh, okay.
So
well, there you go.
That Opera House was a place where, what's his face? War of the Worlds guy. Help me out here. Orson Welles.
The original Orson Welles? Yeah.
So Orson Welles spent time in Woodstock doing various work.
I was going to be like, do you mean Tom Cruise? Do you mean the movie?
No, I'm talking about Ice Cube, Tyler. Ice Cube.
Oh, yeah. Ice Cube.
So anyway, Woodstock, it's like the biggest thing there. It's a big source of their local economy. Every year they have the festival there. So Bill Murray, real winner. Woodstock, a big winner as well for the film. So let's go to our ratings, Tyler. What are you going to rate Groundhog Day out of 5 francs?
Now, Jackie, I explained to you how my francs work. I explained to you. I said 1 franc. I regret watching this film. 2 francs. Probably shouldn't have watched it, but I don't regret it. 3rd, as a film, it's okay that I watched it. 4th is, oh wow, I might watch that again. And 5 francs, Jackie? 5 francs is, oh boy, I'm going to put this on the list to watch at least once a year. I have to watch it every year. It's going to watch it a bunch. Not just once, not just twice, not 3 times. It's going to be more. I can't even count them. And knowing all of that, I'm going to give it 4 francs, Jackie. I'm going to give it 4 francs because I do like watching it, but I'm not going to watch it over and over and over and over again. I'll watch it maybe 6 times, 10 times total. It's not going to be a 500-timer. It's a 4 stars, 4 francs.
Now, I don't subscribe to your exact, way that you're describing the different levels of francs, but somehow
you don't have to.
I've come out with the exact same score. I've got a 4 out of 5, and for me, I like to approach this where a movie starts at a 5, okay? And you just got to keep on, rising to that level. But as I began stacking up the demerits, I had to take a point away. I had to take one of the francs out. It's still a phenomenal film. It's a better film than the last 2 that we've watched, a more iconic film and one that is much more timeless, okay? So 4 out of 5, that is a phenomenal score. To get a 5, you got to have virtually no demerits, and there were just a few on my board.
It's going to be hard for anything for me to get a 5 as well, Jackie. It would it's either going to be it's the best, one of the best movies I've ever seen, or it's a novelty, and I'm giving it a 5 for fun.
Or it actually has Frank in it, where it's hard to take demerits.
It's hard not to. You can't get any demerits, unfortunately. Man with the golden arm, that's got golden 5 francs, unfortunately.
5 golden francs, which are better than the normal francs.
Better than the normal francs.
So next week, Tyler,
he had to stand on top of those francs every single time he was standing next to a female counterpart in any movie.
So you said 4, I said 4. It's our highest rated film yet. Great first edition of Sinatra Classics here. So next week, Tyler, where are we going? Are we going to do something like an Oh Hi? That's a newer film, Netflix, kind of romantic, semi, or are we going to go for the Catherine O'Hara stuff? Because, as you know, we are very sad to have lost Catherine O'Hara.
Jackie, I want to go for the Catherine O'Hara with all my heart. I think we should do the Waiting for Guffman's. I think we should do it. I think we should do that one. But I got to tell you, Jackie, if I had to pick my favorite feature that she's a part of, I would have to say it's the original Beetlejuice. I am a Beetlejuice fan, Jackie.
You're a juicy beetle.
Juicy beetle.
Well, maybe we'll hit that, once October comes around.
I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying, in the spirit of Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah. So we're going to go.
She had so many wonderful roles.
Let's decide right here, right now. We're going to do Waiting for Guffman. And one reason why I like that we're doing this right after we did Groundhog Day is it's got a similar kind of, we're in a small town there is some kind of a small town event happening, and the film is kind of a lot of procedure on how we're building up, as the Christopher Guest movies do. We're building up to an event, which in this case is the performance of a play, and we'll get into that a whole bunch. There's so many great moments from that film that have been all over my various social medias. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Come back and see us for Waiting for Guffman. And all I can say now is thank you for listening to the Brother Sinatra podcast. I'm Jack Sinatra.
And I'm Tyler Sinatra.
And we're the Brothers Sinatra.